These are my top 10 favorite 4K releases from Kino Lorber. Let's talk about it. What is up, everybody? Yes, a bit late to the party. The Kino Lorber summer sale has been raging on for the past few weeks, but I've just been busy, with my own business and applying for schools and getting everything sorted out, ready to move and, having all that stuff. But I wanted to get this video out there because they just announced that they will be doing another couple days extension. So I feel like now, you have a few days if you like the picks on my list and you're intrigued by some of my review details, maybe you'll want to pick them up for yourself. A lot of really cool 4Ks are on sale, a lot more than they were the last sale, the April sale. So check that out. Again, really good deal. $17, $15, $16, $17 4K, which is a pretty good deal. And if you're in America, you get free shipping if it's over like 50 bucks. So especially if you're a pretty big Kino fan, if you're a big movie lover, Kino Lorber is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about my top 10 favorite 4K releases from Kino Lorber. Now this is mainly a spectacle or a visual aspect. Well, also we're going to talk about audio because you can't go wrong with Kino Lorber. A lot of their 4K releases look absolutely fantastic. And the movie selection on their 4K releases are, for the most part, 10 out of 10 great films. So if you have different opinions, if you have different in your top 10s, let me know down below. A few honorable mentions. I love me some of that. Misery 4K looks really good. Silence of the Lambs looks pretty good. But today we're just going to be talking about some of the must-own visual 4K discs. A lot of those are fantastic and great, but some of these are must-owns, at least 9.5 out of 10s in my opinion. So before we get into it, I also want to preface that I am watching this on my 65-inch OLED C1 from LG, the OLED C1, and I'm using a Dolby Atmos audio setup. So enough dilly-dallying out of the way, let's get into it. Number 10, we got The Apartment on 4K Blu-ray, filmed in black and white 35mm with a new 4K digital intermediate. At first glance, you may disregard this release, for not including all the bells and whistles, that being, Dolby Vision or like a HDR10 passover. But even with it missing, this 4K release of the Billy Wilder classic looks absolutely stunning, using a newer restoration from that same 4K scan that Arrow did in 2017 with their standard Blu-ray release. But what makes this superior is the way Kino is able to respectfully clean up the image, making it look as if they scanned a freshly preserved 35mm film print. Compared to the Arrow, there was specks and a bit of dirt on that scan. Here, there is no signs of film speckles and any other degradations. The image itself is immaculate without looking synthesized or overly sanitized, retaining that beautiful filmic look that fans of older black and white films come to adore. Fantastic management when it comes to the grain structure, as it never got to a point where it felt overwhelming or distracting in the slightest. Obviously, it is in this movie, being that it is, from 1960. Like, that's when my dad was born. But, you get grain, you get the filmic look, but it doesn't feel like it's distracting or that it's like been overexposed or like it ruins the overall, film watching experience. And when it comes to the black and white contrast, inky blacks are prevalent with no detail crush, and white levels are clean and don't bloom details. For those film purists, when it comes to the audio, this release does include the original mono track presented in DTS HD Master Audio 2.1 that sounds fantastic and serves the film perfectly. Not to mention the boatload of special features, which can be a rarity with these Kino releases. So with a great transfer, a great restoration, including sharper detail and a cleaner image than the previous Arrow release, I'd say for fans of this classic Hollywood film, and specifically Billy Wilder fans, this is a must-own and a well-worthy upgrade from those that appreciate a good 4K disc. All right, we're trying to vary this list. We got new movies, we got old movies, we got black and white, we got in color. And at number 9, we got Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, filmed on 35mm with a new 4K digital intermediate featuring Dolby Vision HDR, color graded by the original cinematographer Ellen Kuras. This release hit every point in what makes me hyped about a 4K release. First of all, a fantastic, amazing film. Second, a 4K scan of the original 35mm camera elements rendered in 4K with Dolby Vision that was overseen by the original cinematographer of the actual film itself. And I was right, to be excited for this 4K release, as it is absolutely fantastic and a worthy transfer for a great film. This is definitely a must-own for fans of the film, and this higher bitrate disc allows the grain to breathe. As previous home releases were downright doo-doo. Honestly, it looks terrible, looking so compressed and boxy and overly pixelated grain. It looked terrible. So when Kino came along and decided to restore this, it looks absolutely fantastic, and it fixes it in a very natural way without using DNR that muddies like details, but doing a proper 4K scan of the original camera negatives and rendering it in glorious ultra high definition, which results in an image that is sharp as hell. The intended filmic visual style is able to flourish with this 4K release. There is a bit of the CG elements, that's not too much, but the bit of the CG elements look so much better and sit well in the scene as compared to that laughably bad Blu-ray release. This Dolby Vision pass-over that was approved by the film cinematographer really helped tell the film story better than before, making primaries richer. Granted, again, the film is a colder color palette, but the use of filters and its intended emotions that the filmmakers wanted to evoke is done beautifully, both on a technical and cinematic standpoint. This 4K release from Kino Lorber elevates the film, making it stand out upon its previous releases. At number 9, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I really highly recommend this film. All right, I told you we were gonna get pretty eclectic with this list. Number 7 or number 8? 10, 9, 8. Yeah, number 8 is Ronin, filmed on 35mm with a 4K digital intermediate featuring Dolby Vision HDR. Now, I just watched this literally a few hours ago, and Kino still continues to impress. I was so glad that it got the Kino treatment, as the previous Blu-ray release that I owned looked utter dog shit. But I do want to preface that I'm not referring to that 2017 release from Arrow, but the 2009 MGM version. Being shot on Super 35mm film, I knew it would do wonders on the 4K format, with a proper restoration, and I was right. Ronin on 4K looks fan-freaking-tastic. Grain haters can feel at ease, as the grain itself, while present, is barely visible from the excellent cinematography. No shots are overblown, and the presentation itself is top-notch, leaving a fantastic 4K release. And from what I've heard about reviews comparing this to the Arrow release, because I don't own it in my collection, the added Dolby Vision really is able to allow that intended color palette to flourish to its original intent, and a more balanced 5.1 mix compared to Arrow's, which makes this a well-worthy upgrade, I would say. All right, next on the list is Some Like It Hot, filmed on black and white 35mm film, rendered with a 4K DI, sporting Dolby Vision HDR, 4K Marilyn Monroe with Dolby Vision. I mean, what else can I say? I mean, a great film with a great transfer, and with the use of Criterion's stellar audio restoration. This is one of the best upgrades from a Criterion Blu-ray, as those tend to be less appreciated. When a lot of people, I've even made, Blu-ray to 4K screen cap videos, a lot of people will tend to side with the Criterion, but here, I noticed that quite a few people, and even myself, do prefer this Kino Lorber release. This definitely does feel like a worthy upgrade from those who own that Criterion Blu-ray when it comes to its visual presentation. There is better contrast, allowing more details to pop. Black levels being inky as ever with no crush. The Criterion can actually look quite dull compared to this Kino 4K, which revitalizes the film, giving the film a new sense of vigor that it hasn't felt probably since its original film print screening over 6 decades ago. And next we got Tinker Tailor's Soldier Spy, filmed on 35mm film, rendered in 4K, featuring Dolby Vision. This beautifully crafted film surpasses any previous home releases with this 4K Dolby Vision HDR transfer. Being the fact that the film is a very dark film, the added Dolby Vision brings out a lot of the detail that was lost in an SDR presentation. This transfer is not for everyone, as the visual style is meant to be gritty, grainy, and dark, but for those who appreciate that aspect and love the film itself, the amount of detail that shows makes this a worthy upgrade for fans of this thriller. Not to mention, it's an upgrade from the previous Universal Blu-ray release from like well over a decade ago, and it's well worth the upgrade. And while this does feature that same previous 5.1 soundtrack, it still, is a pretty serviceable soundtrack. Now, this doesn't really feature too many bonus features, but it's still decent enough to where if you can get this for a good price, especially during that Kino sale, I'd highly recommend it if you did enjoy this film. Again, it's a hard sale because this film isn't for everyone, but visually looks fantastic, and it's definitely the best this will ever look if you do enjoy this film. Preface again. All right, The Killing. Filmed on black and white 35mm film featuring Dolby Vision HDR rendered with a 4K digital intermediate. A must-own for Kubrick fans. A must-own for Kubrick fans. Kubrick fans. Being pretty cheap at only $15 retail, it also helps that this is a great movie with a fantastic 4K presentation. This Kubrick classic just shines with a Dolby Vision HDR passover. Kubrick, being a photography by trade, knew to pick his shots well, and the fantastic cinematography shines. Razor sharp details, everything just looks fantastic and sharp, and with that Dolby Vision, dimly lit scenes are able to retain a lot of details that were previously lost. Another Kino upgrade that continues to impress from its more expensive Criterion counterpart. Although fans of this film will appreciate the bonus features on that previous Criterion release, as this barely has any bonus features. In fact, one of the bonus features is that it's a 4K. It literally says one of the bonus features is that it's a Dolby Vision 4K transfer, which, okay, I guess, yeah. But for a third of the price, I would say that this is well worth it. All right, continuing with the classics, we got 12 Angry Men, filmed on black and white 35mm film featuring Dolby Vision HDR with a new 4K digital intermediate. What can I say? Another hit from Kino Lorber that justifies its upgrade from the previous Criterion release significantly. And while it does not really come close to the amount of bonus features from the Criterion release, the absolutely crispy 4K image of 12 Angry Men is absolutely banging. The image just looks more lively and pure, presented for the first time in its original theatrical aspect ratio of 1.85 with a new 4K digital intermediate. The grain structure is vastly improved, as the Criterion felt more like image noise as opposed to like this natural film grain, and it does appear to be minimized, being from the fact that there's not much compression on this 100GB dual layer disc. This 4K release really brings to life this must-watch classic, as the details are just spot on. Clothing, stubble, facial imperfections, textures, all those kind of things make this demo worthy for fans of the film. Also, being fact that this is arguably one of the greatest films of all time, getting such a demo worthy transfer is very welcome and is a must-own for those who have a good, nice setup. Not to mention the fantastic 2.0 soundtrack getting a further revamp, removing any signs of age, be it hisses, pops, and crackles, those kind of things. This really does feel like what it must have been like to watch this film in theaters almost 7 decades ago. 12 Angry Men, gotta recommend it. And also, it comes with the 1997 William Friedkin remake, so you get 2 movies for the price of one, and if it's on sale and it's a beautiful slipcover, highly, highly recommend it. 12 Angry Men on 4K, and it also comes with William Friedkin's 12 Angry Men 1997. Highly recommend it. All right, now this was in my top 10 4K releases the year it came out, and that is Paths of Glory. Stanley Kubrick's Paths of Glory. I don't know what to tell you. I just... Stanley Kubrick on 4K looks absolutely beautiful. Made on black and white 35mm film featuring a 4K scan of the original camera negatives with a brand new Dolby Vision HDR master. What can I say? When a masterfully crafted film is immaculately restored in 4K, there's really not much else to dive into that. And being that this is my favorite 4K release from Kino themselves, it made my top 10 list of 2022, and rightfully so, as it blew my mind on how clean and sharp this image can be, being that it is an almost 70-year-old film. I couldn't gush enough about this film anymore, that as this solidified my love for Kino Lorber. No film degradation, masterfully restored in full 4K quality without the use of DNR is an A+ in my book. Also, the fact that this movie is a masterpiece and one of the, if not the best war films ever made. The audio is fantastic, using the original mono track, handling the verbose battle scenes as well as those tense scenes of violence. Again, being restored to remove any sort of hissing and popping. In my opinion, this is a must-own for any fans of film in general, especially for Kubrick fans, I don't know why that's so hard for me to say, and war film fans. Now, please, can we get a Barry Lyndon 4K, please? Pretty please? Alright, going back to a somewhat more modern film, we got In Bruges, made on 35mm film, featuring a new Dolby Vision HDR master, color graded and approved by this original cinematographer, Eagle-Brild. Anyways, In Bruges is one of those releases for me that really flew under the radar. A film I had never really heard of. Getting a 4K treatment wasn't really something that originally piqued my interest. But after starting my Kino 4K collection and watching the stellar Banshees of Inisherin that also starred Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, I was very, very eager to get my hands on a copy. And when I finally got around to popping the disc into the player, I was absolutely stunned, by how well crafted the 4K image was. Being the fact that this was filmed on location in the beautiful city of Bruges, with its picturesque canals and historical churches. The cinematography approved Dolby Vision makes this world in which this film takes place look so vibrant. But not in the sense where everything looks like the vibrancy meter was turned to like 11, but with its subtle pops of color and extremely accurate color palette. Skin tones are spot on, and the fantastic black levels mixed with whites that don't bloom or crush detail is a huge check in my graces. Not to mention the amount of detail packed in this 4K presentation. Every check mark on my list is present when it comes to details, the texture of cobblestones and the differences in architecture from modern buildings in contrast to the rich historical sites that are hundreds of years old, really immerse you in the storytelling. And while, again, the 5.1 track being a good sounding mix, it didn't really make me jizz in my pants. It still services the film and is able to, immerse me into the film. Church bells sound great, giving that sense of reverberation. Gunshots pop off, and they have more. They're more than just those tinny claps and bangs, but actually utilizes the subwoofer pretty well. There's a bit of bass within those gunshots that I was really surprised of actually hearing. And then when the shell casing drops, you can hear it on the other side. This isn't like a boring mix, as the surround capabilities are being used, and it does feel dynamic, but won't feel like it's not gonna feel like obviously like an IMAX experience, but like it's still for what it is, it's still fantastic. And we are at number 1. Again, the numbering on this list is not really relative. I just like to put it in a top 10 because it gets those clicks, and it's a hot topic. It's a sexy title, right? The top 10 4Ks. But this is my number 1 4K Blu-ray from Kino Lorber, and that is a pretty recent release, and that is the Manchurian Candidate, made on black and white 35mm film with a brand new 4K DI and Dolby Vision master, ending off with another black and white film. See, I wanted to cover as much ground as the 4K collection is an extremely eclectic selection of films. So from the over 30 releases, I haven't found a single disappointing 4K restoration. Even when it comes to the actual films themselves, there are only a couple movies I didn't like personally, which is saying a lot, for some other boutique companies that can just release stinker after stinker after stinker. But Kino Lorber really has a pretty decent track record when it comes to the quality of films, and the Manchurian Candidate is far from a stinker. Now, this 4K release may be harder to convince some of y'all to upgrade if you already did get the stellar standard Blu-ray release from Criterion in 2016, but I still believe that this is an upgrade. While both releases were sourced from a 4K scan of camera elements, this higher capacity disc and added Dolby Vision make this release a well done upgrade. Also, the fact that MSRP, this release, even with the sale, MSRP release, this sale is like $15 cheaper, starting with the fact that the image seemed to be restored better here, as no pronounced film film degradations that were present in the Criterion release are not in this release. The film's contrast and brightness seems to be lowered, but not to the point of annoyance like the Disney release of Heat, but a welcome addition adding further shadow detail, bringing out more of the image as opposed to the brighter Criterion release. Fantastic detail from being a 4K scan with a 4K digital intermediate, and even this new 2.0 soundtrack is substantially more of an immersive audio experience than compared to the LPCM mono track from the Criterion release, giving dialogue and music more room to breathe, making each feature legible while adding more dynamics to keep it interesting. And while this release also features a 5.1 track, everything other than steady dialogue, the music just sounds like a mess. I don't recommend that 5.1 audio track. Highly go with that 2.0. So I highly recommend those who are watching this release to watch the 2.0 soundtrack. You won't regret it. So those are my top 10 4K releases from Kino Lorber. These are the ones that are all 9.5 to 10 out of 10 4Ks. Obviously, there are a lot more that I haven't talked about. Again, Mad Max is fantastic. Misery is fantastic. Silence of the Lambs is fantastic. Touch of Evil is fantastic. There's just so many good 4Ks, but these are the top 10 that I wanted to showcase today. Anyways, that was today's video. Again, I really wanted to be as eclectic as I could be with this list, having a good amount of color and 4K, or color and black and white films, from movies coming out of the 2000s all the way to the 50s. So yeah, that was today's video. Let me know down below, are you guys going to be participating in this Kino Lorber sale? Obviously, we're weeks into it. I didn't participate in it because I buy all these 4Ks day one, so there's no really need for me to buy, unless there were a few Blu-rays that I was interested in. But I've really gotten most of what I wanted from that collection. There's a few other movies like Pasolini that I want to get, and a few other ones, but they weren't on sale, sadly. So that was today's video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I am Mason from the Mockbuster YouTube channel. Please have yourself a good day, night, evening, afternoon, morning, whenever you're watching this. Please stay safe. God bless. Peace, cheers, long live physical media, and until I see you guys next time, ka-chow. Peace out.